Okay, Pookies, so you just read Pink and Say. It's one of my faves. It's a great, great book. How many of you thought that Momo Bay was going to die? I didn't. That was horrible. But we got to learn a lot about the characters. Got to learn a lot about history. I wish that we could have done it in person because I have a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about and explain to you about it. But anyway, so today we're going to talk about plot and setting. So right now, real quick, we're just going to review plot because y'all know it, Plot Mountain. And so I kind of drew a little one for you that hopefully you can see. So we're going to start down here. Remember, we start with our characters, Pink and Say, and we're going to say Momo Bay. That's our characters. And where was it? It was in Georgia. It was in the time period of the Civil War. That's our characters and setting. And then we go to the problem. And the problem is right here is that Say is shot. That's the whole thing that started it, is he's shot and it's the Civil War. It's terrible. It's a terrible time period that they're all going through. That's the huge problem. And he's away from his family. I mean, who's going to take care of him? What's going to happen? So Pink saves him and he takes him back to his home. This is how it's building, the rising action. Then we're going to have the climax. Then we're going to have the falling action. And then the resolution. So we're going to say that Pink takes him home. And his mom, Momo Bay, takes care of him. And he gets to see a different world because he's living, with his parents, a white family in Ohio, and he didn't know how slaves were treated, that they weren't allowed to read, that they didn't have their own last name. They had to take their last name of their master. Some had nice masters, some didn't. So he kind of is learning a lot about what's going on, and he sees that Momo Bay doesn't have much, that she's sharing everything that she does have. So she takes care of him, nurses him back to health. He begins to have a relationship with them where he loves them and he cares about them very deeply. And to me, he doesn't really notice that he's white and they're black. I mean, he doesn't make a huge difference. We're all the same. He says the mahogany covered boy. Mahogany means brown colored, but he doesn't say anything else. He's not prejudiced against him. I mean, they're just normal people. And that's a great lesson that we can learn in this story. And also, he learns about how some of them were so mistreated. And then there's one part in there whenever Pink says, it's my fight, isn't it yours? That means when something is so wrong, there's a terrible injustice, we kind of all need to stand up for it and fight against it. It's not just one person's right or fight or one person's problem, it's everybody's. So we need to stand up. So that's the plot. Then Momo Bay sends them down to hide. She protects them and she gets shot and killed. So she gives her life for them. That was a terrible, terrible part. That was a turning point. And in Say's mind, he'd already told them how he deserted, how he left, and he felt horrible about it. But now he's understanding this is my fight. And he's ready to go back and do something about it, because now I guess he feels like that gave him more of a reason, if he didn't have enough reason already, to go and fight. He realizes this has to be stopped. That's the falling action. We're coming back down now. And he's getting ready. He's still scared, but he's getting ready and he's going to go. So he joins he goes out. They go to join, to leave. This is the resolution, the ending of it, or this is the falling action. And on their way out, marauders find them, Union soldiers, or they are found by Confederate soldiers, and they are taken to this horrible, horrible prison camp. And we know then that they're separated, and Pink, because he is a black man, a black boy, is treated so differently, and he is killed. Whereas Say lives on. And the whole thing about this whole story is the hands and the touching of hands. And Say couldn't read, but Pink could read. And Say was so embarrassed because he couldn't read that he thought it was something that he could do better. So what he did was he said, I've touched Lincoln's hand. So at the very end, when they're coming apart, the end of the story is that he says, Say, let me touch the hand that touched the hand of Lincoln. And then he goes and he dies. And the story goes on because Patricia Polacco is still passing it on because her grandfather told her. And so she's sharing it with us. So we are supposed to share it. because Patricia Polacco said, I touched the hand that touched the hand that touched Abraham Lincoln's hand. So the thought that at the very end of the problem, the Civil War's over, it's solved, Say got help, but we have to keep helping too. We have to keep passing it on. I know that's kind of a big, long, elaborate story about the plot, but I didn't get a chance to read it to you in person, so I wanted to go into a little bit more detail with you than probably just a regular old plot mountain, and let you see what I thought about the plot and the story. It was a great story, lots to take away from it. Probably a theme, if you think about a theme, would be treat others the way you want to be treated. Accept people's differences. Everybody has a right to be themselves and be respected for that. There's lots of themes that we could come up with in this. But the plot, you got the plot, was the whole storyline that I kind of told you. So that's important, you know the plot. It's a review for you because you know plot. You understand it. We've done it all year. Now the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is setting and how the setting affects the plot. So where was the setting? It was in Georgia. It was in the South during the time of the Civil War. How did it influence the plot? It let Say see how slaves were treated, see some master's houses. He had some eyes open. The evidence was he went to Master Ali's burned down house and he saw where they lived. He saw where Momo Bay lived. He saw all that. Also, he got to meet Momo Bay. Would he have met her if he would have stayed in Ohio and not gone down there? No, he never would have met her. So he got to meet her, and she treated him like he was her own son, and he got to love her. And he saw ruined houses and plantations. So he saw kind of what was going on down in the South in Georgia. So that's how location affected the plot. It was a Civil War period. He never would have been shot if there wasn't a Civil War going on because he wouldn't have left his home. So that affects the plot. Also, Momo Bay probably would not have been killed. That's a sad thing, but it's true. She might would have died of old age, but because it was a Civil War and it was going on and those bad soldiers were there and marauders, they killed her. So that's kind of really bad, really sad. And he wouldn't have met Pink. During the Civil War, they probably wouldn't have crossed paths. And also maybe Pink wouldn't have been killed the way he was killed. So plot and setting, the time of the story and where the story is, has a lot of influence on plot. Just like you couldn't have made Nemo on a planet because there wasn't an ocean. Okay, so this was all a review to you guys today. So watch the videos on setting and plot that I embedded in here for you, and then listen to my short little story, and then the next little video that I'm going to make is going to be explaining to you our art project. Okay, love you guys. See you for real, and hangouts.